Today we begin our 5-day Lenten midday retreat, and it's going to be a journey. But it's not going to be a journey around the savannah. It's going to be a journey going down deep. We're going to drill down deep. It's not going to be around the savannah. We're going to go deep. We're going to go down. As the savannah has 7 wells in there, we're going into one of those wells. And we're going down. And as we go down, it may feel uncomfortable sometimes. It may be challenging sometimes, but we will still keep going down. Listen, beloved. Listen to your brother's blood crying out from the ground. Genesis 4, verse 10. Beloved, where is the home for blood? Blood resides in the veins and arteries of our bodies, transporting nutrients to every organ of the body. And when blood is expelled from its home, it ceases to live. What happens to it? It dies. It dies because it is excluded from its rightful home. Much like blood, beloved, when humans are excluded from their homes, they suffer a slow death, and they long to return home. They long to return to the source of life. In this Jubilee year, for example, let us consider the inhumane experiences faced by our Palestinian brothers, our brothers and sisters from Haiti, from Venezuela. Those who are suffering physical, emotional abuse and oppressed. These are examples of brothers and sisters without a home, without a psychologically safe space. When we are cut off from our homes, we cry. Similar to my godson, I remember years ago when I first took him to his first day of preschool. And when I took him and then was about to leave, he held on to my legs and he started crying. And he would not let go of my leg. He would not stop crying. And I had to stay almost the entire morning. Why was he crying? Because in his heart and in his mind, he's perceiving that he's been excluded from home. It's the first day that he's now been excluded from a safe space that he considered home, and he was crying. When we are excluded from our homes, we cry. So Yahweh's words, listen to your brother's blood crying out to me from the ground, reflects the cries of humanity whose blood is without a home. And why is God urging us this Lent to hear the cries of the blood of our sisters and brothers? Let's go back to the Genesis book. Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel are biblical archetypes representing the human family with God as the parent God. This relationship between God and this family is intended to be called and considered home. Pope Francis refers to this home in Fratelli Tutti when he says, as a single human family, as fellow travelers sharing the same flesh, as children of the same earth, which is our common home, each of us bringing the richness of our beliefs and convictions, each of us with our own voice, brothers and sisters all. Even the Jubilee logo embodies the warmth of this home. Figures in blue, green, orange, and red represent humanity embracing one another from all corners of the earth. So as members of the human family, we weep whenever our home, whenever our relationship becomes a psychologically unsafe space. Our home is about relationship. It is that space where, beloved, you and I feel belonged, where you and I can be ourselves. We can be honest with ourselves. When we can share ourselves with others, it's a space where we feel, in the Jamaican parlance, like somebody. We feel like somebody. The Jewish author Harold Kushner tells a very beautiful story of a young boy whose house was burnt down. He and his family lived on the pavement, and an elderly lady passing by remarked to the boy, "Oh, I feel sorry for you because you no longer have a home." The little boy smiled and responded, "On the contrary, our house was burnt down, but we still have a home." Without a physical space, this boy still feels belonged to a psychologically safe space. That's home. Today's gospel, the parable of the Last Judgment, exemplify human experiences of persons without a home. The parable speaks of those who are hungry, those who are thirsting, those who are in prison, those who are naked, those who are sick, and those who are strangers. And so the significance, beloved, of the phrase, "your brother's blood is crying," lies in the emotional anguish of being forced from or excluded from home, excluded from that safe space, excluded from that safe space of relationship. If anyone is isolated or excluded from this life-giving home, this life-giving space, this life-giving relationship, or denied it, they cry out, they bawl, because they long to return home. Since Cain, beloved, has been cut off from his home, his rightful relationship, Yahweh instructs Abel to be attentive and sensitive to his cry. For this reason, Pope Francis reminds us that in place of the ram's horn at the start of this year of grace, referring to the Jubilee year, we wish to hear the desperate plea for help that, like the blood of Abel, rises from many parts of the world, a plea that God never fails to hear. And so during this Jubilee year, you and I, beloved, we are encouraged to listen, to be aware of the bawling, the crying of millions of members of our human family, as expressed in Clyde Harvey's hymn, "Tell of my love to the islands, brothers who are seeking, living in the night, sisters who are weeping, searching for the light, children in their flight, they are alone, they are in darkness. When I look every day at my children's misery, they're in prison, they seek refuge. Beloved, listening serves as a metaphor for awareness. Awareness of the emotional suffering and the spiritual suffering that is endured by our brothers and sisters who are without a home, who are without that psychologically safe space that they can call home. One of the major challenges, beloved, facing the human family is the difficulty you and I have of embracing diversity, embracing differences. In the Jamaican parlance, we just can't stand each other. We struggle to embrace differences. And this is not new. The challenge lies at the heart of the story of Cain and Abel. The Cain and Abel story illustrates a timeless conflict between farmers striving for fenced fields and shepherds needing open grange land. The shepherd Abel tended his flock while Cain cultivated his land. The conflict between these two factions of human family resulted in the eradication of the shepherds, represented by Abel, and the landowners, represented by Cain. Thousands of years after this story was written, we are still witnessing the annihilation and the exclusion of various ethnic groups. We are still witnessing the exclusion of people with different ideologies, different religions, different class, different genders, different sexual orientation, different moral beliefs. We cannot deal with each other's difference. That's why Abel was killed. And we're still killing each other. We're still excluding each other because some group is different. Cain's behavior still persists, beloved, in our very families, in our parishes, in our schools, at our workplaces, in our neighborhood, in our nation. We still simply cannot stand each other's differences. The story of Cain and Abel encourages us to make a preferential option to embrace differences, diversity, in fostering an inclusive and safe home and relationship. That's why the Jubilee logo has 4 different colors representing 4 different types of persons throughout the world. Beloved, Pope Francis offers us our missionary challenge in this Jubilee year 2025. He writes, "At the beginning of this year, we desire to heed the plea of suffering humanity so that we may feel called to break the bonds of injustice and proclaim God's justice." Beloved, God's justice, God's right relationship is illustrated in the creation story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, where harmony, comfort, inclusiveness characterizes the relationship between God, humanity, and the environment. The bonds of injustice is reflected in the tale of Cain and Abel, where Abel fails to appreciate his brother and the different gifts his brother offered, choosing to exclude his brother from this relationship from home. And so in this Jubilee year, How can you and I, beloved, listen to the blood, listen deeply to the blood of our brothers and sisters crying out from the ground and help mend these relationships, help to bring them home? Several years ago, a small, mysterious voice entered the fast-paced life of a spiritual director called Maisie Sparks. And this voice said to her, "If you slow down, you will catch me up." That's what God was saying to her. If you slow down, you will catch me up. Beloved, like a snail, God moves very slowly in life. We will only catch up with God if we slow down. And that's what Lent is all about. Slow down. Stop running around the savannah. Stop. And start digging down into our being to find the living God. Like elephants, which use their feet to sense the vibration of river water from thousands of miles away, we must keep the ears of our hearts to the ground to hear the cries of our brothers and sisters who are sometimes miles away from us or even near to us. As we walk together, the Jubilee year and the Lenten season invites us to slow down, listen attentively to God's voice crying out to the homeless and dialogue with them. To hear God's voice crying out in the homeless, we must pause. We must slow down. As Judy Maxwell and myself wrote in our book, Walking Together, describing synodality as a way of slowing down, on page 63 we wrote, "Synod is walking together, not running." Walking is slowness. Slowness is awareness. Awareness of the other. Awareness of the other is attention. Attention is concern. Concern for the other. Concern is care. Care is compassion and mercy. Compassion and mercy is stopping for the other. Stopping is not future focus, it is present. In today's gospel reading, beloved, the sheep are disciples who keep their hearts, the ears of their hearts to the ground, listening and responding deeply to the cry of the blood of their brothers and sisters cast out from the human family, the naked, the hungry, the stranger, the imprisoned, the homeless, the sick. The goats, on the other hand, are disciples who will not slow down. They will keep going around the savannah in their carnival costume. They refuse to slow down and to press their ears to the ground and hear that cry of those who are excluded. And so Pope Francis reminds us and invites us to feel and listen to the cry when he says, situations in which the earth is exploited and our neighbors oppressed, that appear at times in the form of structures of sin that arise not only from injustice on the part of some, but are also consolidated and maintained by a network of complicity. Many of us belong to that network of complicity because we are unaware. I leave with you Archbishop Desmond Tutu's words, a 20th century interpretation of the Last Judgment parable. He has this to say: in a situation of injustice and oppression, there can be no neutrality you have to take sides. You have to say, am I on the side of justice or am I on the side of injustice? He continues, when an elephant is sitting on the tail of a mouse and you say, I am neutral, the mouse is not going to particularly be pleased about your neutrality. You have already made a decision. You have decided to be on the side of the powerful, of the elephant. There is no neutrality. You have already, in fact, made your choice. And so as we conclude this today's first reflection, I leave with you reflective questions for your prayer when you go home or at some quiet time during the day. And these will be posted so that you can revisit them. I invite you to sit quietly in a quiet place, and envision God gazing intently upon you and the world. Then I ask you to reflect on the following questions. How can I slow down and let God catch me up? Who are the proverbial mice where mighty elephants sit on their tails? Perhaps you are that mouse or that elephant. How can I attune the ear of my heart to today's ground and listen to the cries of my brothers and sisters? On a recent trip to Jamaica, I stopped at a stoplight where a pre-pubescent boy was begging. He approached from the front left of my car with his hands out, and our eyes met. For the first time, I saw not the hands begging or crying for help. As the window to his heart, I saw his eyes pleading, begging, not for money, but for a sense of belonging, for a home. Can we hear those cries? I invite you as a practical exercise when you go home or at work. I invite you to draw an object symbolizing a mighty elephant, a burden that hinders you from catching up with God. Perhaps you may want to bring that drawing to the retreat tomorrow, and share it with each other, or share it at home with each other. Who are the elephants? Who are the mice? How can we hear the cry, not of the elephant, but of the mice? Amen.